My husband kept me waiting for over 3 hours at an upscale restaurant on what was supposed to be our anniversary celebration. When he finally appeared with his friends, no less, he smirked and announced, "See, I told you she'd still be here waiting, loyal as ever." Their laughter rippled through the air, sharp and humiliating. I smiled faintly, ordered another drink, and slipped away before any of them noticed I was gone. By the time his 78 missed calls began flooding my phone, I was already at the airport, having booked myself a first-class flight to Paris using his own credit card. I glanced at my watch, 8:47 in the evening. That made 3 hours and 17 minutes of sitting alone at the same small table, nursing a glass of wine that had long since lost its chill. The restaurant staff's expressions had gradually shifted from polite professionalism to something far more painful: sympathy. "Would you like another bread basket, Mrs. Warren?" asked Nathan, the server, his practiced cheerfulness starting to fray at the edges. It was the fourth time he'd checked on me that night, and each time had grown more awkward for us both. "No, thank you," I murmured automatically, clinging to the same false hope I'd repeated all evening. "My husband will be here any minute." I smoothed the fabric of my navy blue dress, the one I'd spent 2 full hours choosing earlier that morning. Ethan had once told me that blue made me look almost elegant. It was the closest thing to a compliment I'd received from him in years. My phone buzzed again, and for a brief moment, I thought it was another hollow excuse from him. But it was Megan, my college roommate. "How's the anniversary dinner going?" 15 years, now that's worth celebrating. I set the phone face down. What could I possibly say? That I was still sitting alone while strangers quietly pitied me? The reservation had been for 5:30 sharp. Bistro Nouveau wasn't the most expensive restaurant in town, but it had always held something special for me. The place was warm and welcoming, with its exposed brick walls and soft amber lights, just elegant enough to feel like a real celebration without the arrogance Ethan usually preferred for his business dinners. Before we go deeper into Isla's turning point, I want to pause here. If you've ever felt invisible or undervalued in your own relationship, you're not alone. Stories like Isla's remind us that rediscovering self-worth is always possible. If you find strength in narratives like these, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps build a community where everyone's value is seen and honored. Now, let's return to Isla's awakening. She'd spent over an hour preparing that evening, the makeup perfectly blended, the lipstick new and bold, the pearl earrings inherited from her grandmother gleaming softly in the mirror. All this effort for a man who couldn't even show up. Her thoughts drifted back 15 years to the woman she used to be, Isla Bennett, a newly graduated culinary student with 3 job offers and big dreams of opening her own restaurant. That version of herself had ambition, creativity, and self-respect. But that was before she became Isla Warren, the devoted wife of rising attorney Ethan Warren. When he got the job offer in Pittsburgh, he'd said, "It's only temporary. 2 years, and then we'll move back so you can chase your dream." 2 years turned into 5. Pittsburgh became Minneapolis, then Denver. Each relocation was framed as a final step before it would be her turn. She remembered carefully packing her professional knives each time, keeping them polished and ready for the day she'd finally use them again. But eventually, she stopped unpacking them altogether. Her phone buzzed once more. "Ethan again. Traffic's insane. Be there soon." She stared out at the nearly empty street beyond the restaurant window. He'd sent that same excuse an hour earlier. With deliberate calm, she typed back, "Should I order for you?" His reply came almost instantly, "Don't wait for me." It wasn't a suggestion, it was an order. "Could I have some water, please?" Isla asked when Nathan returned, her voice tight with embarrassment. "Of course," he replied gently, then hesitated. "Our kitchen closes at 10, just so you know." She nodded, feeling the flush creep up her neck. It was now or never. Any woman with self-respect would have left 2 hours earlier. But 15 years of accommodating his career and needs had dulled her instinct for self-preservation. Through the window, a young couple passed, hands intertwined, laughing together. Isla tried to remember the last time she and Ethan had shared a moment like that. Not polite chuckles at work functions, but real laughter. Nothing came to mind. The couple disappeared into the night, and her reflection stared back from the darkened glass, tired, hollow, unfamiliar. Her phone rang again. "Hello," she answered softly, forcing calm. "Isla, got held up at the office." "The Johnson case is chaos," Ethan said, his voice clipped and impatient. "Another 30 minutes tops." "The kitchen closes at 10, she reminded him quietly. "I've been here since 5:30, Ethan." A sigh crackled through the line. "You're making this about you again. This case could make me partner." "It's our anniversary," she said, barely above a whisper. "I know what day it is, Isla," he snapped. "Why do you think I made the reservation?" He hung up before she could reply. At a nearby table, an older couple finished their dessert, laughing softly before gathering their coats. They had arrived an hour after her and were now leaving hand in hand. The woman glanced toward Isla with a small, sympathetic smile, a look Isla added to the growing collection she'd received that night. She opened her compact mirror. Her makeup was still perfect, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion and quiet shame. "When did I become this person?" she wondered. The faithful dog, always waiting. Nathan returned, this time with the restaurant manager, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes. "Mrs. Warren," the manager said gently, "we're closing soon. Would you like to order something? We can have it ready quickly." Humiliation burned in Isla's chest. "My husband is on his way. Just another 30 minutes. The manager nodded politely, but her eyes met Nathan's with unspoken understanding. They'd seen this scene before, women waiting for men who never came, offering excuses to hide the pain. Isla took a long sip of water, remembering the day she'd turned down a sous chef position at Bellini's in Chicago so she could help Ethan study for the bar exam. "Once I'm established, you can work anywhere you want," he'd promised. But that promise had vanished the moment he passed. The restaurant had grown quiet, nearly empty now. Only 3 tables remained occupied. My phone vibrated again, another message from Megan. "Everything okay?" she asked. I looked around at the empty chairs, the table for 2 where only one setting had been touched, and the realization hit with painful clarity. Nothing about this was okay. Nothing about the last 15 years had been okay. I checked my watch one final time. It was 9:21 in the evening, 3 hours and 51 minutes of waiting. For what exactly? The restaurant door swung open, sending a cool current of air across my bare shoulders. Ethan's voice came first, that confident baritone capable of commanding both courtrooms and dinner parties. Then came laughter, several voices, not just his. My stomach tightened. He didn't arrive alone. 3 people walked in beside him, Lucas from corporate law, Ava from litigation, and Gregory, one of the firm's senior partners. All of them still dressed in office attire. Not one of them looked hurried or apologetic. They hadn't been caught in traffic. They hadn't been stuck at work. They had been drinking at Maxwell's, the attorney hangout only 2 blocks away. Nathan, my patient server, gave me a puzzled look as Ethan and his colleagues approached. Instinctively, I straightened my posture, slipping back into the familiar role of the perfect attorney's wife. My body moved through the motions automatically, even the polite smile that hid the sharp crack forming inside me. "Well, gentlemen and Ava," Ethan announced as they reached my table, his tone just loud enough to attract attention from nearby diners. With a sweeping motion of his hand, his gold cufflinks glinting under the lights, he gestured toward me. "See? I told you she'd still be here, waiting like a faithful dog." The words hit like a physical blow. My smile froze in place. Laughter followed, Ava's delicate hand rising to cover her mouth, Gregory's deep chuckle, Lucas's amused snicker. Every one of them had sat at my table before. I'd cooked for them, poured them wine, and listened to their stories. Ava had once cried about her divorce in my guest bathroom. Gregory had brought his children to our 4th of July barbecue, where I'd spent hours preparing food everyone praised. Lucas had devoured my cocoa vin at countless dinner parties. "For hours," Lucas said, glancing at his watch with a grin. "You win, Ethan. Drinks are on me next time." A bet. They had made a bet about whether I would wait. "Told you," Ethan replied with satisfaction, loosening his tie as he took the seat across from me. The others remained standing, their smirks unbroken. Isla understands the demands of a successful legal career, don't you, honey? His eyes were unapologetic, full of smug amusement. This wasn't lateness. It was deliberate. Would you like to order drinks? Nathan asked, stepping forward, his professional tone tight with discomfort. We've already had more than a few, Gregory laughed, patting his stomach. Just dropped by to greet the lovely Mrs. Warren. And to see if she'd really wait all night, Ava added openly, not bothering to lower her voice. A young couple at the next table exchanged uneasy glances, the only witnesses who seemed aware of how cruel the scene had become. My husband and his colleagues were oblivious, or worse, indifferent. I'll have another glass of wine, I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. The Cabernet, please. Make it the bottle, Ethan interjected. We're celebrating 15 years of marriage. He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine, a gesture that might have looked affectionate to others, but to me it felt like possession. Nathan nodded and stepped away, offering me one last sympathetic glance before leaving. I should get going, Gregory said, checking his phone. Rachel's waiting. Congratulations on the anniversary, you two. Ava and Lucas followed with their own hollow goodbyes, their words meaningless after their part in my humiliation. When the door finally closed behind them, Ethan settled into his chair, relaxed and unbothered, as if the evening had gone perfectly. You should have ordered, he said casually, scanning the menu. Kitchen's probably closing soon. Why did you do that? I asked quietly. He didn't look up. Do what? Bring your colleagues here. Make a bet about me. A faint look of irritation crossed his face. It was just a joke, Isla. Don't be so sensitive. Besides, it's good for them to see what a supportive wife looks like. Gregory's wife would have left after 30 minutes. He said it like an achievement, not an insult. Nathan returned with the wine and took Ethan's order with polite detachment. When he turned to me, I shook my head. Nothing for me, thank you. You're not eating? Ethan frowned. I've lost my appetite, I replied. For hours of waiting and humiliation had erased any trace of hunger. Suit yourself. He shrugged, turning his attention back to his phone. I watched him, this man I had spent 15 years beside, and felt something inside me change. The hum of conversation, the clink of glasses, even the faint music faded away. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. I need to use the restroom, I said softly, standing. He barely looked up, already consumed by his emails. Inside the bathroom's single stall, I leaned against the door and drew my first deep breath in hours. The mirror reflected a woman I could hardly recognize, elegant, composed, and completely empty. Pulling out my phone, I opened the rideshare app. A car could arrive in 3 minutes. Then I opened my banking app. Our joint account displayed a recent charge at Maxwell's, $147.82 for office drinks. My separate credit card, the one linked to his premium account for emergencies, had gone almost untouched. Until now. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the airline app. One first-class ticket to Paris remained for the midnight flight. The price gave me pause for only a moment before I pressed confirm. I thought of the unopened box of professional chefs' knives packed away since our last move, the Parisian restaurants I'd read about during quiet afternoons, the flavors I'd only dreamed of creating. A confirmation email appeared, Seat 3A, departing to Paris in just under 3 hours. I reapplied my lipstick, lifted my chin, and stepped back into the dining room. Ethan was halfway through his meal, scrolling his phone. You know what, I said calmly as I sat down again, I think I will have another drink after all. The rush of emotion struck me hard as the plane touched down at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Exhaustion from the overnight flight tangled with a sharp surge of adrenaline. I had actually done it, I'd left. My phone, which I had switched to airplane mode after the 20th call from Ethan, began to vibrate nonstop the moment I re-enabled it. 47 missed calls. 78 text messages. As I scrolled through them, I watched the tone change from confusion to anger and finally to panic. Where are you? Answer your phone now. The credit card company called about fraud. What did you do, Isla? This isn't funny anymore. Your parents are worried sick. I had to call them. Please, just let me know you're safe. I'm sorry about last night. It was just a joke. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Come home. I've called the police. That last message made me pause. Would the police really look for me? I was an adult who had chosen to travel. I wasn't missing, I was leaving. I sent a single message to my sister, Sophie, I'm safe. I'll explain later. Don't worry. Please don't tell Ethan anything. Then I turned the phone off completely. Stepping outside into the crisp Paris morning air, I felt terrified yet oddly liberated. I had nothing but my carry-on bag, a change of clothes, a few toiletries, my passport, and my wallet. No plan, just freedom. The taxi driver spoke little English, but the word hotel was universal. Somewhere not too expensive, I added, unsure if he understood. Near good food, he said with a nod before pulling away from the curb. Through the window, Paris revealed itself, not the picture-perfect version from postcards, but a living, breathing city awakening to a new day. Street sweepers cleared the sidewalks. Bakers carried trays of bread. Commuters hurried toward the metro. We turned down a narrow street in what I later learned was the 11th arrondissement. The Hotel Cuisine was small and slightly worn, its blue awning faded but welcoming, the sort of place locals might recommend to visiting friends. Bonjour, I said awkwardly at the front desk, my American accent painfully obvious. Good morning, the concierge replied in perfect English, smiling kindly. Welcome to Hotel Cuisine. Do you have a reservation? I'm afraid not, I admitted. It was a last-minute trip. Something in my face must have said more than my words because he gave a small, understanding nod. We do have a single room available, 3-night minimum. Would that work for you, miss? Mrs. I stopped myself. Isla Bennett. My maiden name felt strange, almost foreign after 15 years. The concierge, Daniel, his name tag read, turned out to be an American from Boston who had moved to Paris 12 years earlier for love and stayed for the food after the relationship ended. As he processed my card, he marked nearby cafes and walking routes on a small map. The best place for your first proper French coffee is just around the corner, he said, circling a spot. Café Artist. Tell Amelie that Daniel sent you. The room was tiny but spotless. A single bed, a small writing desk, and a window overlooking a quiet courtyard where herbs grew in neat rows. I showered off the flight, changed into fresh clothes, and left before I could start doubting myself. Café Artist was buzzing with morning life. I ordered un café au lait and a small breakfast plate, taking a seat by the window to watch the rhythm of Paris on a Wednesday morning. The coffee arrived dark, rich, and flawless, accompanied by a small pastry I hadn't ordered. Compliments of the house for new faces, the server said in accented English. I took a bite. Buttery layers gave way to soft almond cream, and tears pricked my eyes. This was why I had once dreamed of cooking professionally, to create moments that moved people. Isla Bennett. I turned. A woman stood there, staring in surprise. Blonde bob, sharp cheekbones, chef's pants under a leather jacket. Chloe. It took me a second to recognize my old culinary school classmate beneath her polished, worldly appearance. Gone was the girl with wild curls and a flower-streaked apron. Chloe Laurento, I said. Chloe Delorier now, she corrected with a laugh, pulling me into a warm European-style embrace. What on earth are you doing in Paris? Last I heard, you were married to some hotshot lawyer in Denver. It's complicated, I managed. Are you working here? Sous chef at Ambrose, just down the street, she said proudly, naming a restaurant I had seen in food magazines. Been here 6 years now. But you, I thought you gave up cooking when you got married. I did. Chloe slid into the seat across from me. Such a waste. You were the most talented in our class. Her gaze sharpened. I never understood why you turned down that offer from Rendezvous in Chicago. That was your dream job. I blinked. I never got an offer from Rendezvous. Her smile faltered. Yes, you did. Chef Laurent told me himself. He was shocked when you declined. Said you'd chosen to focus on family. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Chef Laurent called, You mean about me? He called several of us, Chloe explained slowly. He was assembling his dream team, asked for recommendations. I told him you were the best candidate. But later he said your husband had phoned to decline for you, that you'd decided to stay home. Family. The words sliced through me. We had tried for children early in our marriage, only to face disappointment after disappointment until Ethan declared it wasn't meant to be and buried himself in his work instead. That can't be true, I whispered. Yet deep down, I already knew it was exactly what Ethan would have done. There were other inquiries about you, too, Chloe went on softly. Over the years, your name came up and then, suddenly, the interest would vanish. A cold realization spread through me. How many chances had been erased before I ever knew they existed? I need to use your phone, I said abruptly. Chloe handed it over without question. I typed in a name I hadn't looked up in years, Chef Adrian Mercier, my old instructor and mentor, the man who once told me I had hands that understood food. His website appeared instantly, listing upcoming workshops. My breath caught when I saw the headline. Classic French Techniques Workshop, Paris, April 15th to 20th. That was tomorrow. Chloe, do you know if Chef Beaumont's workshop still has openings? I asked. She smiled. He's an old friend. I'm assisting with the workshop. I can get you in. 24 hours later, I stood in a professional kitchen at Lardon Bleu, slicing shallots with familiar precision while Chef Beaumont moved among the 12 participants. His face lit with genuine joy when Chloe introduced us. There was no judgment in his expression when I explained my long absence from professional cooking. The hands remember what the mind forgets, he said kindly, watching me work. Your technique is still beautiful, Isla. During lunch break, Chloe introduced me to two others, Laurent Dubois, a food writer for Civa's digital division, and Olivier Girard, the owner of 3 bistros in Paris. They asked thoughtful questions about American dining trends, genuinely interested in my views despite my years away from the industry. You have a distinctive way of describing flavor, Laurent noted after I explained a dish. Very specific, very sensory. Do you write about food? I shook my head. Not professionally. You should, she replied, handing me her card. Send me something. That evening, I finally called my sister from the hotel phone. Sophie answered on the first ring, her voice tense. Isla, is that you? It's me. I'm in Paris. A long silence followed. Paris? What happened? Ethan's been calling everyone. He says you're having some kind of breakdown. Did you believe him? I asked quietly. No, she said after a pause. But I didn't know what to think. You just vanished. So I told her everything, the anniversary dinner, the humiliation, and Chloe's revelation about the job offers. Sophie gasped when I mentioned the one from Chicago. You know it's crazy, she said. We all saw it. The way he isolated you, criticized you, controlled everything. Even Mom noticed how you stopped talking about cooking after you got married. Why didn't anyone say anything? I asked. We tried. Remember when I visited last year and suggested you take that community college cooking class? Ethan spent the whole dinner explaining why it was a waste of time. After that, Mom and I talked about confronting you, but we were afraid you'd side with him. He had you so convinced that his way was the only way. I closed my eyes, remembering how defensive I'd been whenever anyone questioned Ethan's decisions. What are you going to do now? Sophie asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm not coming back. Not yet. Good, she said firmly. Stay away until you remember who you are. The next day, Chloe offered me a temporary position helping prep at the bistro where she worked. It's nothing glamorous, she warned. Mostly chopping vegetables and making sauces. But it's a start. It was more than a start. It was a resurrection. With each finely diced carrot, with every perfect sauce, I felt pieces of myself returning. The rhythm of the kitchen, the teamwork, the quiet pride of sending out a flawless plate, all the things I had once loved came flooding back. In the evenings, I began writing in a small notebook Daniel had given me. Not just recipes, but reflections, stories about food, Paris, and rediscovering purpose. Soon after, I created an anonymous blog called The Runaway Chef, where I documented my culinary reawakening. A week later, Daniel knocked on my hotel door, looking uneasy. "There's a man downstairs asking about you," he said. "An American. Says he's your husband." My stomach tightened. Ethan was here. "I didn't confirm you were staying here," Daniel assured me. "Hotel policy. But he left a number and said to tell you your parents are worried, and there are financial matters that need immediate attention." That night, my sister called again. "Ethan showed up at Mom and Dad's yesterday," she said. "He told them you'd had a psychotic break, that you'd emptied the accounts and maxed out the cards." Dad almost believed him until I showed him your messages. "Are they okay?" I asked. "They're worried, but they're on your side." Dad said, and I'm quoting, "If she needed to go to Paris to get away from him, then she needed to go to Paris." I think he's finally seeing Ethan clearly. Over the next 2 weeks, I found my rhythm. Mornings were spent in the bistro kitchen, afternoons exploring Paris or attending Chef Beaumont's classes, evenings writing. Each day, I grew a little stronger, a little more certain of who I was becoming. Ethan's attempts to reach me grew frantic. He called the bistro twice. He messaged mutual friends, claiming concern. He even contacted Chef Beaumont, pretending to support his wife's culinary passion. But each effort met silence as I methodically blocked every number, every email. My blog became my refuge. I wrote daily about the perfect croissant I discovered in a hidden bakery, the way sunlight touched the Seine in early morning, the feeling of regaining something I thought was lost. 3 weeks after my arrival, Laurent Dubois appeared at the bistro during my shift. "I've been reading your blog," she said, settling onto a bar stool. "Chloe told me it was yours." My cheeks warmed. "It's just something I've been writing for myself." "It's wonderful," she said. "Your piece about your grandmother's kitchen made me call my own mother." She slid her business card across the counter. "Siva is expanding its digital presence in Europe. We're looking for someone who understands both American and French cuisine, someone who can create and write with passion. Would you consider it?" I blinked. "You're offering me a job?" "A 3-month contract to start," she said, smiling. "If it goes well, we'll talk about something permanent. The editor tried your apple tart with rosemary cream when he ate here last week. He said it was the best dessert he's had all year. The head chef had let me design a weekend dessert special. I hadn't realized anyone significant had tasted it." "This isn't charity," Laurent said gently, seeing my hesitation. "It's recognition of skill. Your husband may have stalled your career once, but he doesn't get to do it twice. Unless you let him." I turned her card over in my hand, feeling its quiet weight. "When do you need an answer?" "Take the weekend," she said. "Call me Monday," Laurent said as she rose to leave, then turned back at the door. "Isla, whatever you decide about the job, don't stop writing. Your voice matters." Monday morning arrived with unexpected clarity. I'd spent the weekend walking along the Seine, drafting a formal acceptance letter in my notebook. But as I approached the bistro for my morning shift, a familiar figure leaning against the entrance stopped me in my tracks. "Ethan." He straightened immediately, adjusting his tie, the same practiced gesture of control I'd seen 100 times at firm functions. He looked thinner, and the dark circles beneath his eyes hinted at sleepless nights, but his expression quickly shifted into the polished concern of the devoted husband he played so well. "Isla," he said softly, his tone carefully gentle. "Thank God. I've been so worried." A few kitchen staff members glanced our way as they arrived. Ethan stepped forward, arms open as if expecting an embrace. I stepped back. "How did you find me?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Does it matter?" He replied. "I'm here now. We can sort this out." He reached for my arm. "Let's go somewhere private to talk." Before I could answer, Chef Moreau appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay, Isla?" His limited English carried a protective note. "It's fine," I said. "My husband was just leaving." "Actually," Ethan interrupted with his courtroom smile, "my wife and I need to have an important conversation. Family emergency back home." Moreau looked at me, waiting. I gave a small shake of my head. "Take the day," Moreau said finally, "but the choice to return is yours." Ethan waited until the chef disappeared before his mask slipped. "This little vacation has gone on long enough," he hissed. "I've covered for you with everyone. Told them you needed space after a health scare. We can still fix this if you come home now." I'm not coming home, Ethan. He glanced around, then steered me toward a small park across the street, his grip firm on my elbow. Once we sat on a bench, the concern drained from his face, replaced by anger. Do you have any idea what you've done? The credit card company's investigating fraud. The firm's asking questions. Your parents think I've driven you to some kind of breakdown. His voice rose. And now I find you playing chef in some second-rate bistro? This is beneath you, Isla. No, I said quietly. What was beneath me was waiting alone at that restaurant table. What was beneath me was letting you destroy my career behind my back. His expression flickered. What are you talking about? From my bag, I pulled a folder filled with printed emails, messages I'd gathered over the last month from Chef Laurent at Rendezvous and a catering company in Denver. Each confirmed the same pattern, offers of employment followed by false declinations supposedly from me. You had no right, I said evenly as he scanned the papers. Those were my opportunities. My choices. I was protecting you from disappointment, he argued, but his confidence wavered. You weren't ready for those positions. I knew what was best. No, you knew what was best for you, I replied. A wife without her own ambitions. Someone always available to host dinners and play the part of perfection. His jaw clenched. I supported you. I gave you a beautiful home and financial security. A cage isn't beautiful just because it's expensive, Ethan. A young couple passed nearby, their eyes flicking toward us. Ethan lowered his voice. This rebellion ends now. Ava saw your food blog. Gregory knows you're in Paris. How do you think it looks that my wife ran off to play Isla Child while I'm up for partner? I hadn't realized my blog had reached his colleagues. A small, involuntary smile tugged at my lips. That wasn't intentional, but I'm not sorry. They should know who you really are. His face reddened. Is that what this is? Some revenge stunt? You're destroying my reputation because I was late for dinner? This isn't about revenge, I said calmly. It's about reclaiming my life. I've been offered a position with Siva magazine. I'm taking it. A food magazine, he scoffed. That's hardly a career. What about our life together? Our home. I've already spoken with a lawyer, I said. The divorce papers will arrive next week. It wasn't yet true, but the shock in his eyes made the statement worth it. You can't be serious, he said, panic creeping into his voice. We can fix this, therapy, a new start somewhere else. Chicago, maybe? Chicago, I repeated. Where I was offered my dream job years ago. He flinched. I did what I thought was right at the time. For yourself, I finished. I stood, drained. I'm not coming back, Ethan. Not to Denver, not to you. I found something here I didn't realize I'd lost, myself. And what about what I've lost because of you? He snapped. Gregory questioned my judgment yesterday. Said if I can't manage my personal life, maybe I'm not ready for partnership. So that was it. Not love. Not remorse. Just damage control. That sounds like a you problem, I said, one of his own favorite lines. For a moment, I thought he might shout. Instead, his shoulders sagged. You've changed, he said bitterly. Yes, I answered. I have. We parted without resolution, 15 years of marriage settling between us like a silent wall. The divorce went more smoothly than I'd expected. Ethan, ever mindful of appearances, conceded most terms to avoid a public spectacle. The lawyer Laurent recommended, an American expatriate who specialized in international divorces, guided me through everything. I accepted Siva's offer, stepping into a new chapter that merged passion with possibility. My blog gained followers, chefs, critics, readers from both sides of the Atlantic. The woman who had been silenced for 15 years found her voice again, stronger and steadier than before. 6 months later, I hosted a small dinner in my new apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in the 6th arrondissement with sunlight streaming into the kitchen and a view of the courtyard below. Around the table sat the new pillars of my life, Chloe and her partner, Chef Beaumont, Laurent and her husband, Daniel from the hotel, and 2 colleagues from Siva. I served a menu that reflected my journey, appetizers inspired by my culinary school days, a main course blending French technique with American roots, and for dessert, the apple tart with rosemary cream that had changed everything. As we lingered over wine and laughter, my phone buzzed. Ethan's name lit up the screen for the first time in months. Whatever crisis or plea he had would have to wait. Without opening the message, I deleted it and turned back to the warmth of the table. In that moment, surrounded by friends and food crafted by my own hands, a quiet certainty settled inside me. This, not 15 years of waiting, but a lifetime of becoming, was what I was truly worth.